At long last, Silostra gets a chance to perform in front of the Fanchantress herself. Unfortunately, the Fanchantress has very rudely interrupted the performance by throwing giant rocks from trebuchets, which is most unbecoming of a Bretonnian lady. Therefore, Silostra has no choice but to engage with her massive horde of zombie pirates. So here we go. This replay is from Bob, the Master of Maps, XMT member, and he's taken, of course, zombie polearm columns, multiples. Got 5 of them, it looks like, and the rest of these zombies got some shotguns. Very interesting. The hand cannons, some up-close DPS, looks like deck guns as well, a couple of them for long-range DPS, plus a carronade, plenty of handguns as well, and scurvy dogs, plus 1 depth guard polearms as the Triari kind of ace unit. Of course, Silostra herself not on her crab, which is going to be quite dangerous against Bretonnia, given their amount of magical damage. She, of course, being a ghost, relies on her physical resistance, very low HP, and 0 armor. Does have Charmed and okay weapon strength, but definitely doesn't want to be fighting melee as much as possible. That said, there aren't a lot of units in this Bretonnian army that actually deal magical damage. There's no Grail Knights, Knights of the Lion-Hearted. Really, it's just the Fey Enchantress herself that Silostra has to worry about. I mean, obviously, she doesn't want to be... Oh no, the Royal Hippogriff Knights do magic damage now, too. I forgot about that. So they're going to potentially be a problem. She definitely doesn't want to get circle beaten by them as much as possible, but given that she's a relatively small target, she can potentially avoid the damage. We'll see. Lots of peasant bowmen as well. A couple of field trebuchets for infantry. We've got men-at-arms and spearmen-at-arms, a bunch mixed in the front, all with shields, and a Grail Relic in the center for leadership. Looks like some other sinister scurvy dogs trying to swiftly execute the crews here, and despite the best attempts of the hippogriffs here, a little bit hard to see what's happening in the shadows of the hills here, but the doggos do get through. Given their undead status, they're not going to immediately rout, although they will very quickly start to face the undead crumbling and disintegration. Unfortunately, do not get enough damage in on the trebuchet to actually rout them, which is most unfortunate, but oh wow. Silostra risking it for the biscuit here. Look at that. It's going to take a big old chunk of damage from the Fey Enchantress, but perhaps it's bait. We see a unit of crabs be summoned immediately for the Vampire Coast here. Shotguns are coming forward. Their range is still pretty far away, but unfortunate that Bob was forced to burn the crab summon, although it can still be used to some effect to do some damage to the Fey Enchantress. You can see the Hippogriff Knights are also kind of collapsing here, so Bob going heavy with the bait here as he puts Silostra in some danger, but again, these hand cannons are maneuvering into range. He's also got the Damned Knights Errant, of course, with Frostbite and pure AP damage in a rear charge on these Hippogriffs could be absolutely devastating, but they definitely need to get on the move as soon as possible because Silostra is getting completely massacred. No, actually, it looks like they're going to detach, perhaps, try and get in that back line and shut down those trebuchets, or just start to rout the peasant bowmen. I'm not sure, but yeah, some nice volleys from those hand cannons does some serious bursts to the Hippogriffs, forces a regrowth already. Not to mention the Fey Enchantress herself took about a quarter HP damage from that summon there, which, again, decent enough value. Bob, though, is going to likely get these damn Knights Errant completely crushed, given, again, that the Hippogriffs actually do have magic damage now, but to try to overrun into these trebuchets just to get as much value there as possible in terms of tactical disruption. But the carronades, I'm not really sure what they've been firing at. It looks like trying to go after the Hippogriffs, which is probably the best choice at this point. But disruption efforts have not been successful on the field trebuchets, and the damn Knights Errant, fortunately, are lost as well. So already 2 of the 3 summons available to Silostra have been burned, so not a lot of value left in herself other than leadership capabilities, but let's see. It does look like the Bretonnian player here is going to advance. I'm not really sure about this. I think probably they should just continue to hang back and play off of those trebuchets, since Bob's attempts to shut them down have largely been unsuccessful, but they are going to push forward here, try and compromise this heavy missile position. I don't know. I guess with the cannons and with the deck guns in and of themselves, the Vampire Coast could probably still out DPS Bretonnia at range, even with the trebuchets. The black spot definitely paying the price of being such an elite unit. Enchantress trying to come forward here, but is going to expose herself to an extreme amount of gunfire. Do some damage to Silostra. I'm not sure this is going to be 100% worth it. We'll see. Oh, looks like she's going to pull away, which honestly she probably should have just stayed at that point because she's so close, but I don't know. Gonna pull away there, try and dodge some of those shots. Has to pop a regrowth on herself, so already a lot of her healing magic has been used as well. So, some nice plays on both sides. The columns of polearms also will result in the units kind of washing up over the sides of them, ideally, which will then allow them to be shot by these gunpowder units. But we'll get the UI out of the way so you guys can see these overlapping fields of fire. And the Bretonnia just being devastated as their infantry tries to advance here. Archers probably are doing some fairly solid damage, though. If we take a look here, yeah, focusing on some higher value targets like those deck guns, it's going to provide some very good value on them. The trebuchets also maybe overkilling those black spot. They could probably switch on to one of these other ranged units, but just the sheer firepower of the Vampire Coast. It's been a while since I've seen a gunline build like this that just has the force to push enemies back, but the archers are going to be a big problem here, definitely. Bretonnian Peasant Bowmen, despite being kind of average, to be honest, they are, well, out of all the Bretonnian skirmish units, they're definitely the best, right? And they're pretty good. Their leadership is quite poor, obviously, but the range is good, damage is good, maybe above average in those categories. It's really your only option for infantry skirmish, but so effective in so many ways. And here, that long range and arc of fire makes them quite good, and they're relatively cheap as well, so they can trade cost effectively against a lot of the Vampire Coast's ranged units. But with the infantry largely being routed off, the zombie columns advancing now, pushing the archers away, potentially, or at the very least engaging them in melee. Let's take a look at the leadership situation as well. Silostra is able to stay mostly safe. Hippogriffs haven't been hunting her too aggressively, but it looks like now they're going to be trying to close down that backline. Which definitely understand if they can get in here and shut down some of these high-burst gunpowder units. It will it removes one of the biggest threats to the Royal Hippogriffs themselves, but look at that. The Fae just gets gunned down there, and the loss of healing and leadership could be quite significant. You can see a lot of the Bretonnian infantry units just go for a fresh second rout immediately once the Fae Enchantress dies. So that's going to be tough, because if they come back in and rout one more time, they're likely to shatter. So Bretonnian infantry support could be having some problems, and the Hippogriff Knights too. Once the gun line's able to turn and focus fire on them, going to take absurd amounts of damage. And despite delivering some pretty hefty pain, they are themselves feeling it. And unfortunately, we just weren't able to compromise that gun line earlier on, and although mounted yeomen are not the best unit in the world, they're generally pretty poor, honestly, for light cavalry. Just functionally, I think you probably need them in this matchup to try and pressure your opponent's backline with some cheaper units. That way your more expensive units can get in and try and power strike and burst down targets a little bit quicker, while you're still, having some disruption and occupation of enemy ranged forces. But wow, quite an impressive gunline build, I have to say. I haven't seen something like that for Vampire Coast in quite some time. Just a classic, shoot you to death zombie pirate build, which I certainly appreciate. The just the power of it. The handguns in particular end up being the best part of this, probably, which not particularly surprising to me, I guess, knowing the history of the Vampire Coast. These typically have been the best, most cost-effective kind of infantry. Well, besides pistols. Pistols often are very good as well, but if you need the armor piercing and just general power, I mean, especially in this rate of numbers, with these other ranged units layered in as well, the hand cannons, not one that I've used a ton myself, but a couple of them pay out some really nice value, 700 value in particular on one of them. Makes them a nice alternative to the bombers. Bombers are good still, don't get me wrong, but I'd have to look at these hand cannons again. Certainly, I love the columns of polearms as well. That specific deployment usually is unadvisable, but in a situation like this, again, ideally it allows enemies to kind of envelop around the sides, so your gunpowder units still have line of sight to shoot them. And overall, good stuff. Silostra ends up surviving despite being used as bait multiple times. For Joker side, for the VPB clan, yeah, it's an interesting build, I have to say. Some parts of it were executed fairly well. I think maybe he just needed to, I'm not sure. Again, from a build construction standpoint, I'd probably option out some of these infantry units for some more light cavalry in this particular matchup. Even the yeoman archers could potentially be useful here, mildly, although just the melee variant, honestly, in enough numbers could help kind of disrupt. Of course, you can't guarantee Vampire Coast is going to do this. They can do some other things potentially in this matchup that could give you some problems. But, yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.